to the channel. So we've got our Bobcat T250 in the garage and we're gonna do a full maintenance on it. Hope you like the video. Okay, first thing to do is get the oil change. Well, here is the oil drain tube, and this just has a 7/8 cap on the top of it, and it takes a 7/8 wrench also to hold that part. But then when you take the cap off, just aim that down, and I'm going to put it into this 5-gallon bucket that I use to reclaim the oil and take it down to the recycling center. I haven't had any luck on getting this loose, and I've tried propping the, usually you just pop these together, so I'm going to try an impact gun. So hang on. Okay, I don't know if this is going to work for sure or not, but let's try it out. Ha! There we go. So it shouldn't have been that tight, but we got it off. All right, now then, put this back up here for now. Oil can over here. And we'll let it start draining. I don't know why that cap was so tight. Hopefully there's not a lot of other items like that. The other thing is that hose, if you can see that, that oil has to go up just a little bit before it comes down this hose. So that's kind of weird, but we'll get this drained out. Go ahead and pull our oil fill cap off. I'm glad it wasn't that tight. I don't know how I'd get an impact in there. Okay, so we've got that off. And I like to do that as well as pulling the oil dipstick, just to get a little bit of air in there so that there's not like a vacuum or something holding it up. While we're letting that oil drain, so here are our filters that we got from the new Bobcat store down in Washington. And that's $225 worth of filters. And we're gonna change them all. So looking at the oil, you could tell it was definitely due for an oil change, but if the numbers on the filter are right, this thing had almost 400 hours on it. Actually a little over 400 hours on it. And you're supposed to change these at 250 hours, and that's what it'll get from now on. Luckily, everything's running and working on this thing perfectly, but just going off of the oil change frequency that the last people had, doesn't sound like they kept up with their maintenance that good. And I will almost bet that this has got a new filter because they had to work on something up there. Okay, while that's continuing to drain, let's take a look at this air filter and get them changed out. I bought the inner and outer filters. And a lot of times you can get by without changing the inner. But I'm gonna guess if the oil was overdue for service, probably this air filter will be too. And they did the air filter same time they did the oil filter, so that was changed back in April of 19 at 5,800 hours. So almost 400 hours on this. So actually over 400 hours. Let me do the math real quick. It's been 427 hours since the oil was changed or this air filter was changed. And it looks pretty dirty. Not horrible. Nothing's living in it. That's nice at least. Okay, set that down. And when I set that down, a bunch of dust just came off of it. So loosen this up. Like I said, I've got the inner and outer filter both that I bought from Bobcat. And this fuel filter, it has under 100 hours on this fuel filter, but I'm gonna change it too so that everything is all at the same time. My theory on buying used equipment is make sure everything that it does works and then maintain it. I can't afford to fix something that works, so I don't buy anything that doesn't work. That air filter's fairly dirty too. So then my next rule is don't buy anything you can't afford. So, and like I said, I use all this equipment, and I definitely need for it to work, but I'm not trying to make my living off of it, which enables you to buy stuff that's a little more worn than if you had to work, make your living with it. Put a new filter, inner filter in, and I've got my marker, so I'm gonna write that on there. And we are 6,308 hours. Whole bunch of difference between the way these filters look and that one that we took off. Put that in. And then this goes on. Okay, so we've got our air cleaner done, and I think we're still dripping on our oil. Yep, we're still going. All right, well, we might as well do the fuel filter next. Let's do this fuel filter. Even though it's the newest filter on here, we'll put our new fuel filter in, which is from Bobcat. This was a Napa filter that was on there, which I can't imagine there's a lot of difference. Let me look real quick. So, I don't know if you can do this, but I'm gonna wet that gasket with a little fuel. Try and help it make sure it seals. And I'll write the hours on this filter as well. 6,308. And that was 7:23. Alrighty, we're back, and this has quit dripping. So we'll go ahead and pull that filter off, put the new one on, and fill it with oil. The oil we'll be using is this Shell Rotella 15W40 full synthetic. It says it takes 3.5 gallons. First things first, put our cap back on. Okay, snugged up, that should work. That back up here. There it goes. All right, there is one well-used filter. Okay, we get our new Bobcat filter out of the package. And I'll take and get some oil on that seal, which is lined up perfectly. And we'll put this on hand tight. Okay, I'll write my hours on it, and we'll put 3.5 gallons of oil back in, and we should be good to go. So there's 2.5 gallons in it. And of course the filter's probably not full yet, but let's just see where that puts it on the stick. So about halfway up the stick. So let's throw our other gallon in there. Okay, let's see where that's at, puts it. Okay, it's right at the top of the stick, but like I said, this filter's probably not totally full yet, so we'll start it up at this point, come back and give it a check. I'm gonna open this vent and squeeze the primer bulb. There we go, got some fuel out. start up by priming the fuel system. We'll see what the oil looks like. Oil is right to the top of the stick. So it's nice having that nice clean oil in there. And this thing will be ready for the next 250 hours. So we're done back here. We'll go ahead and go to the front and raise the cab and start doing the hydraulics. Okay, and so to get to the hydraulic filters, we have to raise the cab, and to do that, there are these 2 3/4 inch bolts. We have to take the nuts off of them, and then we can raise the cab. So I've got this impact with a universal. We'll see if this will take these off. There we go. That was easy. Let's try this other one. There we go. Okay, we'll see how easy this tilts back. I have no idea. Oop. Trying to feel hydraulics, trying to help. Okay, and it seems to be locked by those. Yeah, it says push to release. So there's hydraulic struts on each side of that. I think I'm going to go ahead and tie that off to my crane. Just make sure it can't come down. Okay, so the cab is up. There's the push to release. Okay, and that orange filter is one of them I'm going to change. And then down in there at the very bottom is a sump drain, and I've got a filter for it also. So I'm going to change those and we'll see how it goes. So we're going to do the hydraulics on this now, and I'm looking for this filter, which is the sump drain filter. And these are critically important because when your drive motors work, they end up running the fluid back to the sump tank, and that has to be filtered. And if this filter gets plugged up or clogged up, then excess pressure gets built up in those drive motors, and you can actually ruin the drive motor. So this filter is supposed to be right between these levers and down there between those two big hydraulic lines, kind of where that big pile of mud is. So I'm going to take this out and power wash it. The way they say to follow it is from the small lines coming off your drive motors, and then before they get back over here, that filter's in there. It should be right about there, but I don't see anything but a whole bunch of mud. So I'm going to lower this cab, take it outside, power wash it, and then see if we can find that filter so we can get it changed. The other filter is this filter, which is easy to find. Okay, I've got the arm released. Now it's going to lower it down. And that's not super heavy, but it's not super light either. And with this being inside, I've got a pretty good hydraulic leak that's dripping down right here, but where it's actually coming from, it's dripping down right here, but where it's actually coming from is this cylinder all the way up here, because there's a trail of hydraulic fluid running from this leaking thing all the way down, which with gravity flows this way, drips down into here, and then finds a hole and comes down onto the track. So that'll be another thing to get fixed. And with just that amount of pressure washing, I can see the filter. go ahead and get it cleaned off. Of course, when I really start washing this, it starts pouring down. But you can now see that silver filter down there, and I'll be able to get that changed. But probably going to be a tomorrow morning thing, because it is absolutely pouring out here. Yep, we've got a monsoon. We've got the skid steer back in the barn. We've got everything power washed. And now that filter and those hoses that were completely buried in mud are exposed. And it looks like we've got 2 hydraulic lines coming into that filter from the back and 3 coming off at the front. So the first thing I'll do is take these control arms off, get a little better access down there. So this cab support has a lock on it right there to keep the cab from coming down while you're working under it, because it resembles a giant mousetrap. Well, what I went ahead and did was tie the thing off to my overhead gantry too, so that it cannot come down, even if that 21-year-old latch were to fail. The other thing is those hydraulic cylinders on this, I think are pretty much shot, because I don't think they had any assistance at all in raising it up, and when it comes down, it will just slam down. I'm going to go ahead and put some scribe lines on here so I can see where these arms line back up when I go to put them back on. I love these nuts have these shoulders on them, so you don't drop that nut down in the bowels of that machine. You just about have to climb in here on your head to work on this. Okay. So now we've increased our space a little bit. Still probably pretty dark down in here for y'all. But there is an unobstructed view of the filter. So that black band is actually a clamp that holds it in place, and then all of those hydraulic lines go into it. So I've got caps and plugs for all those lines, and so far everything I've used has been a 9/16 socket and wrench. This smaller nut is 11/16, and the larger one is 3/4. So let's see if we can get any of these broke loose. Let's see, that should go this way. And there's broke loose. Okay, but I gotta hold it on that side. There we go. Yep. There we go. That weird how it doesn't take any effort with the wrench to turn that. But actually now I can turn it with my fingers. There's that one off. And put a cap on this little thing. Okay, so that should not be leaking while I take the rest of these off. Okay, and to get that nut holding the clamp, I'm using a 9/16 crow's foot. because my socket won't fit in there. There we go. And these things are pretty slick if you haven't seen them. This is probably only the third time in my life I've used them, but when they come in handy and you need them, there's nothing else that does it. Okay, so to get this filter off, I could take the 3 hydraulic lines that come out there and bring the whole thing off, or I might be able to just unscrew that end of it, and that's an 1.5 inch hex on the end. Okay, I thought about trying to just unscrew that filter from that back fitting, but the more I thought about it and started to do it, I'm going to go ahead and take these lines loose. But definitely let me know in the comments if you ever change this, if that was an option. Bring out the old magnet. There we go. Ta-da! There we go. Okay, so that one is loose. I think this next one will be easy enough to get to. Go. Which way it's coming out? Okay, it's coming out of the filter, it looks like, so I think actually that'll be just fine. Oops. Oh, the filter's spinning. Okay, so that'll be easy enough. Put 1 3/4 inch here and one there. And here is the filter out. And like I said, I've capped those ends where it was coming out. Here is the top of it. So this was in there, oriented like that. And the line that came out right here, when I took it off, man, it had a bunch of oil coming out of it, hydraulic fluid. So I have, oops, I don't know if you can see that. I have put a plug in that line. And these little caps and plug sets, I just bought, but there's a couple of the caps. I've used all the plugs that I had out with me, but I would definitely recommend having those before you start working on hydraulics. I still have probably maybe less than 1 quart of hydraulic oil down here on the frame of the machine, but that's not bad. So now I'll take this filter and switch it to the new one and get the thing put back in. Okay, and I'm gonna clean some of this stuff up since this wasn't buried in mud. I'm gonna reuse these fittings, which if I had a hydraulic shop close, I might not. And now I'll take the other end out. Ooh, and it came out that end. That's not right. There we go, okay. I've got them all straightened up. I don't know what I got filmed, but this is going out the top just like that. This one is pointed to the left, parallel with that one. And then there isn't one on this side, but the end cap is there. So we're ready to put this back together. Okay, I'm not going to worry about writing the hours or the date on this little filter. I don't think you'd ever be able to see it the next time it gets changed. And here is the other filter that I'm going to change, and I did the hard one first, I hope. But this was changed in 4/19, so that's 4.5 years ago. And at that time it had 5881 hours. And so that was 427 hours ago in 4.5 years. So about 100 hours a year. I don't know if that's high use or not. I know 6,000 hours is a lot, but it seems to be in good shape. So I'm pretty happy with it. And I will open that filter up and see what that looks like. But the only leak it has is on this lift cylinder over here. And I think I can get that changed. So it's definitely a learning experience, but it's also fun. Climbing in this thing in this little bitty tight space is not that much fun, but we're getting her done. Okay, so the only problem with this is you have to get in here with 2 hands, and there's nothing else to hold you up. So we've got these tight though. It's definitely not the most fun thing I've ever done, but you know what? It might be one of the most rewarding. Your mileage may vary. Okay, wait up. Okay, I'm not going to reuse this canister. The filament inside there is replaceable, but I'm just going to take this out and see what kind of gunk is inside it. So spring loaded. You know what? That doesn't look too bad. I'm not upset about that at all. That may have been replaced. I mean, I don't know if you can see that there was spring. You know, there's some stuff in there, but they say they should still be kind of the gold colored, and it is. That don't look too bad. I'm gonna throw it in the trash. This case with the filter was like $50, I think it was. I thought I would get a new inner segment, this filter part, put it in this case and have a spare, but I tell you what, this case is almost rusted or dissolved, whatever. It's been buried in gunk for a while, so. Glad we got a new filter in there, but I'm very impressed that this doesn't look near as bad as I was afraid of. There are no metal pieces, metal shavings or filings in there that I can see. And that's the thing that kills your hydraulic pump, I've been told. So I'm happy. We've got the new filter in and I've got all the lines on. I don't see any leaks, so we're gonna move on to the other filter. And we'll go ahead and change this last filter. I don't know if this wrench will do anything or not. I'm gonna try it out. Okay, let's try this out. Here we go, it worked. Pretty snazzy. I've had this in the drawer for a long time. I think that's the first time I've ever used it, but it worked out pretty good there. Little chain filter wrench. And I've got my new filter right here. So let's take this off. Got a few drips coming out. I'm going to use those to lubricate the gasket. And then we'll put this new filter on. There we go. I just go hand tight putting filters on. Okay, and then I'll write the hours and the date. So 6,308. And that is 7 of 23. I don't know of any way to start this up and run it since the cab's up in the air. But what I'm gonna do is put this all back together. And remember, I put the lines on my linkages so I'd know where they went. And I'll start it up, run it outside, and then run it for a few minutes, raise the cab, and see if I can see any leaks that way. I've done as much as I can to make sure that's not leaking right now, but till it runs, you never know. Okay, so I've got the bolts loosely put in that. And what I'll do is move the joystick. And as I move in the joystick, you can see it back up until those lines are back even. and then I'll tighten them down. Okay, I'm going to pull it out. I'm going to drain the drive motor oil and replace that, which in the book says uses 10W40, which I was a little surprised because I was thinking gear oil. But other than that, I'm going to look for leaks. I'm going to grease everything up. I did find 2 grease fittings under the cab, and I've already hit those with grease. Okay, I drove the Bobcat around back of the building and raised the cab up, and I see no signs of leaks. And I looked around a lot better than what this GoPro is probably seeing. It is wet down there from oil, but there's no new oil, no drips, no sprays. So I think we're good. The next thing I'm going to do is I've got our final drive on the left side with this plug at the bottom. And according to my service manual, you pull this out, let the oil drain out, then rotate it around to 90 degrees and fill it until it also comes out a little bit. So I assume fill it slowly. And every final drive I've ever seen or heard of uses gear oil, so like 75 to 90. And this one, the book says 10W40. So for, you know, if anybody that works on these all the time knows that that's supposed to be something different, please let me know. But I'm going to go ahead and drain these and put fresh 10W40 in them. Okay, also while we're over here, this is the hydraulic fluid sight window, and the fluid is supposed to be halfway up. You can see it's just barely at the bottom, or at least I can see that. So I'll add some hydraulic fluid as well. I'm gonna guess we lost somewhere between a quart to a half gallon changing that filter. Plus that giant filter was dry, so maybe up to a gallon. Well, that'll work well if I can just get the drain out. Oh. Not hard at all. So this was a 3/16 Allen socket. Okay, I'll go ahead and pull this out. And I got oil coming out. It's actually fairly pressurized. And it does not look like it is 75 or 80. So that, according to the book, is 10W40 oil. And it's supposed to completely drain with that hole at the bottom. My excavator's got a hole here, a hole in the middle. Kind of surprised, or not surprised, but I'm happy about that. Sprocket looks pretty good. So the tracks don't look great, but they'll definitely work for retired farm homestead use. Okay, I'll let that go ahead and do it. I could jack this machine up and do both sides at the same time since the tracks spin independently, but I'm just going to do one at a time. I'll back up until this hole gets parallel with the ground. So I can't see it, so let me know when. Okay, so the book says 10W40 oil, and just put it in until it runs out this hole. And I didn't have anything to get that oil in that hole, but I had a lower unit oiler for my boat, and it fits in that hole. And then 10W40, I had some Shell Rotella, so I put it in this Napa oil quart, and we'll see how this works. Oh yeah, it's gonna work. And it's running out, so I'm going to say that that's full, because that's what they said to do, was fill it till it runs out. I'm going to put the cap back in it and go to the other side. Okay, let's get this one drained out. Got our drain pan in place. Sure, I'm glad these are fairly easy to come out. I saw that little bitty Allen screw, I was like, that looks like a problem. And it's got oil in it, and it's headed out. And that does look like 10W40. Other stuff looks a little thicker. It's just, I'm amazed that when so much stuff uses gear oil, that this uses 10W40. Using my little home-built tool. Just a brass hose barb and a piece of 7/8 OD 5/8 ID vinyl tubing. That fits right in there. And then I just pour the oil in the hose. Let's see if I can do it without blocking you guys. And it doesn't take a lot. Honestly, probably a couple hosefuls of this will do it. So put the plug in. This was not super tight, so I think that'll do it. Well, here's my ISO 46 premium anti-wear hydraulic fluid. And this is the same hydraulic fluid that my excavator uses. And my understanding is the exact same that this uses. Tractor fluids are different. Okay, and that's pretty much it on the Bobcat service. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll let you know how it comes out. If you got any suggestions, please let me know. This is the first Bobcat I've ever even sat in, let alone worked on. So, and skid steer of any type. I pretty much call them all Bobcats. So, even though this one is. All right. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a great day. Be safe.